When it comes to productivity, the only thing better than saving time is getting more output for less input. And the only thing better than that is to be able to do that consistently over time. That's why in this video, I'm going to cover 7 different habits that easily save me over 20 hours a week, if not more. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jorge Calaos. I'm a business lawyer based in Florida, specializing in high stakes lawsuits. And in this channel, we explore the principles and the strategies to help us live more productive, meaningful, and fulfilling lives. Habit number 1, plan tomorrow today. Part of the reason that a lot of us feel overwhelmed at work is because we try to plan and execute at the same time. In other words, when we wake up, we still don't know what it is we're going to do. And so we spend the morning planning what it is we're going to do and then executing. And then as we're executing, we're planning the next thing and we're doing all of it at the same time. Now, doing all of that at the same time, it can be extremely overwhelming. That's why I always recommend to plan tomorrow today. Now, I do this in 2 ways. Number 1, I plan my week ahead of time on Sundays by making a task list for the week. And number 2, every evening during the week, I adjust the task list. I cross off everything that I've completed and I add in new things that I believe should be completed as well that I come up with during the week. And so by doing those 2 things, not only do I begin the week knowing what it is that I have to do, but every single day I also wake up knowing what it is that I have to do, because oftentimes the task list that you set up for the week changes as the week goes on. And so if you don't update it every evening, the task list can stop serving its purpose because it's become a little bit outdated. And so doing these 2 things allows me to begin every week and every day knowing exactly what it is that I have to do. And so I don't waste time combining the planning and the execution stages. I'm a big believer that most people can easily save 5 hours a week just doing this alone. Habit number 2, keep task lists nearby. Like I was just mentioning, every Sunday I make a task list for the week with all the tasks that I want to do for that week. But the other thing I do is that I always throughout the week keep that task list right next to me where I can always see it. And the reason for this is that if I just have a task list and it's somewhere over there, then that task list is largely useless because I'm not looking at it. And so if I have a task list and it's just over there, I basically took what was inside my mind, put it down on a piece of paper, and then moved the paper away, so now it's back inside my mind. But if I keep the task list nearby, it stays on the piece of paper. I can always reference the piece of paper that is right next to me, so I don't have to rely on my mind over and over again. And so not only do I reduce the amount of mental bandwidth that I'm using, but also keeping that task list nearby reminds me of the tasks that I have to do, which makes me feel like everything is in control. So much of our time is often lost trying to figure out what it is that we should do or if we're even doing the right thing. And creating this task list ahead of time and keeping it nearby at all times helps prevent that loss of time. Habit number 3, focus on one thing at a time. Many of us think that if we multitask, we can be more efficient because we're doing multiple things at once. Unfortunately, the science shows that this isn't actually how multitasking works. Now, I'm not going to cite or quote the studies because I've quoted the findings of these studies before, but the science has shown that multitasking actually makes us more easily distracted, it impairs our short-term and our long-term memory, and it increases our levels of stress and frustration. And so with an impaired focus and impaired memory and higher levels of stress and frustration, it's easy to see how multitasking makes us less efficient instead of more efficient, which is what we think that multitasking does. It reminds me of that Mozart quote that goes, "The shorter way to do many things is to only do one thing at a time." Now, if you want to see the video that I made about multitasking, I'll link it right up here. Now, this habit actually ties very well into habit number 4, which is batch your tasks. Most people have heard of the concept of batching, but I think that it doesn't get enough credit, especially in today's world where we're wired to basically just do a bunch of things all at once, multitask, go on our phone, talk to our friend, etc. Part of what we do when we batch tasks is reduce distractions. Now, before I get there, if you don't know what batching is essentially where you group certain tasks together by category. So for example, creating these videos is a multi-step process. And so I can batch scripting, for example, so I can script a bunch of videos at the same time. I can batch filming, which is what I'm doing now, which is filming a bunch of videos at once. I can batch scheduling the posts, where I schedule all the posts at once, and so on and so forth. Another form of batching is that when I'm focusing on content, I just do content, and when I'm focusing on lawyer work, I only focus on lawyer work. And so batching does 2 big things. Number 1, it keeps you from being distracted by the other things that you have to do. For example, right now I'm not distracted by scripting, I'm not distracted by my lawyer work. I'm not distracted by other things. I'm completely focused on filming this video and the next video. And number two, it increases the quality of your work because you can focus solely on this specific task or this specific type of task. And so you can really give it your all. And by the way, one thing that I forgot to mention about multitasking is that when you're constantly context switching from, for example, project A to project B, if you're working on project A and you switch to project B and then you switch back to project A, a residue of your attention is left in project B. And it takes a while. Some studies show that it takes upwards of 30 minutes for that residue to come back to project A. And so while we think that we can just context switch back and forth, the science shows that this isn't actually how this works. Habit number 5, say no. Saying no is probably one of the most underrated superpowers that you can have. Having the ability to say no at the right time and even better in the right way will create more joy and more freedom than almost any other skill. This is for a few reasons. Number one, when you say no to the things you want to say no to, for example, to the things that you don't have time for, you don't end up having an overload of commitments that leaves you drained. Number two, you don't end up feeling drained by doing things that you don't want to do, like showing up to an event that you really don't want to be at. Number three, when you actually say yes, you can be fully present because you 100% want to be there. In other words, people get the best version of you. And number four, and perhaps more importantly, you don't hurt your self-esteem because you're not communicating to your subconscious that your own needs and desires don't matter. Because when we want to say no, but we say yes, every single time we do that, we communicate to our subconscious mind that our thoughts and our needs and our desires don't matter. Unless you have a really good reason for saying yes, even though you kind of want to say no, in which case you actually kind of want to say yes, if that makes sense. But if deep down you really want to say no, and if it was just left up to you, you would say no, and you're only saying yes for this other person, what you are doing is you're telling yourself that other people are more important than you. And other people are not more important than you, you are not more important than other people. And so if you want to say no, and if somebody else wants to throw a temper tantrum because you said no, then let them. But if the only reason that relationship is staying alive is because you're saying yes when you want to say no, then it's not a relationship worth saving. I actually made an entire video on this concept of saying no, how you can start saying no, and a bunch of other things about saying no that I'll link right up here. Habit number 6, rest well. I try as hard as I can to only work when I'm working and only rest when I'm resting. It's one of the reasons why I keep my phone away from my desk when I work, is because this is a form of entertainment, a form of rest, and I don't want to mix the two. On top of the fact that this thing is incredibly distracting. What we end up doing when we mix work and rest is that we don't really do either one well, because we're constantly going back and forth between one and the other. But when we work and we just focus on working, the quality of our work gets maximized. And when we rest and we just focus on resting, the quality of our rest gets maximized. In other words, we can step into each world completely and get the most out of each world, instead of stepping into each world with just one foot and barely getting any of the benefits of either world. Kind of reminds me of the old saying, earn your pillow. In other words, work really, really hard up until it's time to rest, and then once you're resting, you can rest knowing that you earned your pillow. And so once you're on your pillow, you're not thinking about work because you earned your pillow. And finally, habit number 7, automate and delegate what you can. There's a lot of ways that we can get more by doing less, but one of those ways is to automate and delegate. Now, I'll be the first one to acknowledge that while I am pretty good at automating and building systems that automate things for me, I am not very good at delegating. However, I am getting better at delegating. And the reason I'm getting better at delegating is because I understand how not only important it is, but how necessary it is if you want to build something at scale. And so if you want to do more by spending less time, you have to learn how to automate and how to delegate. The way you automate is usually through systems, and the way you delegate is by trusting other people. Learning to build systems and learning to trust others will help you go a long way in your productivity journey. Now, if you like this video, I think you'll also like this video right here called 5 1-minute habits that 10x'd my productivity. And as always, if you like this content and want to join the community, make sure you subscribe. Leave me a comment letting me know what you liked or what you want to see more of. And if you want even more resources, you can check out my website at the link in the description, where you can sign up for my weekly email newsletter, where I send you content like this every Monday via email to get you started for the week, and where you can download your free copy of the 4-step morning routine to high performance and peace of mind. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.